Hi, I'm Carl Kumbier. I'm one of your GSIs for Stat133. In this short video, I'm going to show you how you can get your homework assignments and then submit them after you've completed them. So right now, I am in a terminal window. I can see what directory that I'm in by using the pwd command and then typing enter. This is telling me that I'm in my home directory. I can change directories using cd, and what I'm going to want to do is change directories to my Stat133 folder. And so I run cd, and then this is the command for home directory. I put my home directory, or my Stat133 directory, inside of a folder called src, and then Stat133. And then hitting enter, I can use ls to see what's inside that directory. I can use pwd to see where I am. And so this is telling me that I'm inside my home directory in a folder called src, and then inside of the folder src, I'm inside of the folder called Stat133. And so again, using ls, I can see what's inside of that folder. And like most of you, I only have an info.r and a readme.md file. I can go to my GitHub account, and I see that there are additional files in my Stat133 folder. And this is often how we will distribute homeworks to you. We will put inside of your Stat133 folder on GitHub, there will be, for instance, a homework 1 folder, and that will contain several files that you will need to complete and then submit to us. So here, in addition to my readme and my info.r file, I also have an example.r and an example.csv file. The example.csv file contains some data, and the example.r contains some instructions for what I'm supposed to do with that data. And so if I go back to this directory, Stat133 on my computer, this is linked to GitHub, and so if I run the command git pull, it's going to ask me for my username and then password, and it's going to copy everything that's on GitHub to my computer. And so now when I type ls, I'll see that in addition to the readme.md and the info.r files, I also have the example.r and the example.csv files that you saw on GitHub. And so the R files are what you'll have to complete for many of your assignments. And then the CSV files will contain data. And so I can go to RStudio to open the example.r file. And so to do that, I'm just going to open File inside of RStudio, and I'm going to navigate to my Stat133 folder, and then I'm going to open example.r. And this is what many of your homework assignments will look something like. These hashtag characters are commenting out all of these lines, and so none of this will be run when you try and run your code. And so this first line tells us, please load the data example.csv and store it as a variable with the name ex.data. And so to do that, I'm just going to use r's readcsv command, and I want to name it ex.data. You'll notice that I'm leaving this line here. I can delete it if I want. It is commented out, so it's not going to be run when I try and run my code. And so the command to read data is read.csv. I need to give it the name of the data file, and that's example.csv. And this CSV file happens to have a header, so I'm just going to tell R that the header is true. And the next task is to create a subset of that data that I just loaded. And it says make a variable with the name data.subset, and it should have the first 10 rows of ex.data, which I just loaded. And so I'm going to make my variable ex.subset, and that is just I'm just gonna use subsetting techniques in R that you'll probably cover in class in the next couple days here. And so I just use ex.data, and then in data, and then in brackets I tell R I want rows 1 through 10, all columns, and that's going to get me my data. Now this right here, this window in RStudio, is the text editor window. And so this is where I'm going to want to make all of the changes to the scripts that I get from GitHub. I can test these changes by running them in the console window. Now when I try and test my code, I need to make sure that the console is running in the same directory that all of the data files are in. And I can check that by using the getwd command in R. And this is telling me that I'm in my home directory. And so I need to then change it to the Stat133 directory that the example.csv file is in. And so I'm just going to specify the path to get to my Stat133 directory. And if I'm not sure what that is, I can just go back here to terminal and type in pwd. And it tells me that this is the path to the folder that contains example.csv. If your data is inside of a homework 1 folder in Stat133, for instance, you would also have to do something like specify homework 1. In our case here, the example.csv file is just inside of Stat133. And so I'm going to leave this as my path. And I actually have to say set wd. And so now I'm just going to check and make sure that worked. And my new path, my new working directory is in fact Stat133. And so I can check my code here. And I can see if the variables were in fact created. So ex.data, that is 100 observations. And if you opened up the example.csv file, you would see that it is in fact the same data. And then I can look at ex.subset, and that is just 10 observations. And it does in fact match up with the first 10 from ex.data. So that all looks good. I've completed my example assignment, and now I want to submit it. So first thing I need to do is save the data file. And then I can go back to my Stat133 directory, see that it's there. If I wanted to do an extra little test to make sure that everything here is good, I can run rscript example.r, and if there is a bug with my script, if there's an error, this won't run, but everything ran smoothly. So given that I checked it here and there's no errors when I run it through rscript, I think it's ready to submit. And so to do that, I'm going to run git pull just to make sure that in the meantime nobody's added anything to my GitHub repository. And it's telling me that I'm up to date. And so now I am ready to push my assignment. And so the three things that you'll need to do are git add, git commit, and git push. And so git add, I need to tell Git which files I want to add to this submission. And that's going to be example.r. This is the only file that I changed. Sometimes if it's an entire folder, you want to add the folder instead of just individual files. And now I can check to see that I've added it correctly with the git status command. And it's telling me this change right here in example.r is ready to be committed. And so now I run the git commit command, And I'm just going to specify a message that will help me know what I did in this commit. And so I'm going to say edits to example file. This can be anything you want it to be, just informative for yourself. And this is telling me that I've made 3 insertions and deleted 1 thing inside that file. And so now everything's ready. All the changes are stored on my computer. This commit takes a little snapshot of that. And now I'm going to push it onto the GitHub website. And that's done with the command git push. And again, I have to enter my username and password. And this is telling me that it's pushed. I see that it was pushed successfully. And I can double check that by refreshing the GitHub page. And I see that this commit right here, there's been a change to example.r. I can open that up and see that the lines I added previously are in fact there. And now the instructors can collect your assignment and grade it.